The heart is a muscular organ present in all vertebrates that acts as a pump. The main function of the heart is to pump blood to all the parts of our body. This most important organ is present in the center of our chest, protected by our rib cage. So, how does the heart look? The heart is a hollow muscular organ that has 4 chambers. To look at the structure of the heart, let's divide it into left and right side. The right side has the right atrium and the right ventricle. Similarly, the left side has the left atrium and the left ventricle. The upper chambers of the heart are called auricles and the lower chambers are called the ventricles. Blood flows in and out of the heart through structures called blood vessels. The blood enters the right side of the heart through the superior and inferior vena cava into the right atrium. The blood leaves the right side of the heart through the pulmonary artery. Likewise, on the left side, the blood enters the left atrium through the pulmonary vein and exits through the aorta. The aorta is the largest of all the blood vessels in our body. In a way, the heart is a central hub through which blood passes from one place to another. The most important and interesting thing about the heart is what it is made of. Yes, the heart muscle. The heart muscle is called as the myocardium. Structurally, the wall of the heart is divided into 3 layers: the pericardium, myocardium, and the endocardium. The pericardium is the outermost layer of the heart wall. This layer is further divided into fibrous pericardium, parietal pericardium, and the visceral pericardium. There is a gap present in between the parietal and visceral pericardium that hosts the pericardial fluid. This cavity is called the pericardial cavity. The middle layer of the heart is called as myocardium, and the innermost layer of the heart is called as the endocardium. So, now we know where the heart is, how does it look, and what it is made of. Let's look at how does it work. There are 2 specific sites in the heart that makes the heart work. One is located above the right atrium and the other is in between the 2 ventricles and the auricles. These are called the sinoatrial node and the atrioventricular node, shortly abbreviated as SAN and AVN. These 2 nodes give the heart the ability to pump blood constantly. They generate electrical impulses that make the blood flow both inside and outside the heart. It starts with the SAN. The sinoatrial node produces the electrical impulses that flows throughout the auricles, causing them to contract. During this contraction, the blood is pushed into the ventricles, and when the impulses reach the AVN, the atrioventricular node, then distributes the impulses throughout the ventricles. This makes the ventricles contract, making the blood from these ventricles exit through their respective blood vessels. Generally, the contraction of any chamber of the heart muscle is called as a systole, and their relaxation is called a diastole. During a systole, the blood gets pushed out of the chambers, and during a diastole, they are refilled. This keeps happening repeatedly, and one systole and one diastole together is called as one cardiac cycle. During each cardiac cycle, the blood flows inside and outside the heart. The blood flow is always unidirectional inside the heart. That is, the blood that enters the right atrium moves into the right ventricle when it contracts, and when the ventricles contract, the blood in the right ventricle gets out through the pulmonary artery. Similarly, on the left side, the blood that enters the left atrium gets pushed into the left ventricles, which is then pushed out of the heart through the aorta when they contract. This is how the blood keeps flowing in our body. But how does the blood flow in one direction only? Well, it's because there are structures called valves that keep the blood flow that way. The right and left side of the heart is separated by the atrial septum. In the right side, between the right atrium and right ventricle, there is a valve called the tricuspid valve. Similarly, on the left side, between the left atrium and the left ventricle, there is the mitral valve. There is another valve present in both sides that is in between the ventricles and the blood vessels. They are the pulmonary valve and the aortic valve. The structure of these valves are in such a way that once they are shut, blood cannot flow from the opposite side. So the blood flow is always unidirectional. The right atrium receives deoxygenated blood from the organs and tissues through the superior and inferior vena cava. During atrial systole, they move into the right ventricle, which then gets pushed out through the pulmonary artery during ventricular systole. This sends the deoxygenated blood to the lungs for oxygenation. Then, the oxygenated blood comes back to the heart through the pulmonary vein and enters the left atrium and moves into the left ventricle, which then exits through the aorta during the cardiac cycle. The bigger picture is, the blood carries oxygen to all the parts of our body, like tissues, organs, muscles, and glands, because oxygen is very important for the cells to generate energy and function. When the tissues take up the oxygen from the blood becomes deoxygenated, kinda looks purplish. This deoxygenated blood reaches the heart via veins. The right side of the heart collects the deoxygenated blood and sends to the lungs for reoxygenation. Once the blood becomes oxygenated in the lungs, they return to the left side of the heart through the pulmonary vein, the only vein in our body that carries oxygenated blood. And from the left side of the heart, the blood is pumped back to the tissues and organs to deliver the oxygen and other nutrition. Now, we know how the heart functions. We must also know how it can malfunction. These are the diseases of the heart. The first is the congenital heart disease. These are problems of the heart present at birth. The second is the heart rhythm problems, which is also called as cardiac arrhythmias. The third, blood vessel diseases, coronary heart disease, heart blocks, ischemic heart disease, etc. Fourth common type is the heart valve disease that can happen to any of the valves inside the heart. The fifth is the diseases of the heart muscle, which is commonly called as congestive heart failure. And the sixth is the cardiac infection, which is commonly called as endocarditis. So what causes these heart diseases? The common causes can be divided into two fractions. The first, they are medical conditions like high blood pressure, high cholesterol level, diabetes, and sleep apnea, and lifestyle factors such as an unhealthy diet, not enough physical activity, smoking or consuming alcohol, and sometimes stress. Now we have come to the end of the things that we need to know about the heart, and I'm going to list out the things that we need to remember about the heart. First, the heart is a pump that is at the center of the circulatory system. Second, it is made up of a special tissue called myocardium. Third, the damaged myocardium cannot be replaced with more myocardium. Instead, they'll be replaced with skeletal muscles. This will compromise the function of the heart. Fourth, the heart pumps at an average rate of 60 to 100 beats per minute. Fifth, the electrical conduction of the heart muscle is measured by the instrument called as an electrocardiogram. Sixth, the interiors of the heart can be seen using an echocardiogram. 7. The right side of the heart contains the deoxygenated blood and the left side of the heart contains oxygenated blood. And at last, a healthy lifestyle and diet keeps the heart diseases away.